Okay guys, so we're going to do a real quick analysis of Robert's rear view swing. I'm not going to do the forward view or caddy view, just kind of my choice on this, but I have kind of the A-OK from Robert to do this, so he doesn't mind. So anyway, this is the address position of Robert in his practice, and I had a film here of Robert at the Dubai that unfortunately is too fuzzy to get into analyzing a golf swing, because if you're looking on your iPhone or your Motorola, you probably won't be able to see very much, and you're just going to have to take my word for it. I don't really like taking my word for it. So anyway, here's one of the things that we'll start with is in the address position, and I think this is really good for a lot of people to kind of understand about dynamics and structure. So first and foremost, when we look at Robert, you'll see that a lot of people say this is just a fantastic setup, and I agree with that, but there's some reasons for that, and one of which is when you look at his posterior tilt, his hips are kind of tucked underneath him, his knee flex is there, basically the knees are right around the laces, his shoulders are outside the toes, his arms hang away from his shoulders, and that allows his elbows to stay at a pretty good rate. When guys start to get too upright and stand up, their elbows tend to work away from them, and when they bend over too much, their posterior tilt starts to stick out too much. Now, from where Robert is right here, you can see he's maintaining a good neck tilt, which also is something that Adam Scott is starting to employ. About a year and a half ago, it was very noticeable that he was trying to keep his neck tilt down because he had an issue with turning his shoulders too flat on the backswing, and then when he would make his backswing, sorry, I'm getting a text there. When Adam Scott would take his backswing and pass, his neck tilt was too upright, and when your eyes and your neck tilt is too upright, your shoulders turn too flat. Okay, now that's something that was introduced to me years ago by O'Grady. He made a huge study on that, on the eyes. I won't get into that. That's not my business. But that was pretty much one of the big things that the Morad deal did. So anyway, going from his address position to his first release point, which is, we call it when the shaft gets parallel to the ground right here, you'll see Robert here is hitting, it looks like a straight inline fade. So what you'll notice is that this face is pretty much square to his forward tilt, his address tilt, which is that first bend that you have at your address, and his hands have moved inward up that arc. Okay, so that would be the red line here, your hands point. And as he makes it into his backswing, he starts to turn, rotate, and extend, and he's standing up, he's getting a little taller, about an inch, not very much, which is a good thing. Okay, you see a lot of players do that. And as he gets back here to the yellow line, you'll see his arms are in, about 40 degrees. And you can also see that this right elbow is now in front of his right lat and is beginning to load and bend as he's extending and turning into the backswing. So you see right here at the top of Robert's backswing, I'm not getting into wrist positions and stuff. That can be kind of a hairy topic for some people, because people say, oh, that's flat or that's cupped, and whatever. That's up for debate, in my opinion. So this right elbow's down, and you can see that he has a fairly flat left wrist. Some people would call that open, some people would call that shut. So I call that pretty geometrically flat for the most part. Now, another interesting thing here is that you see that his right hip is higher than his left knee is lower than his right. That means that his right leg has lost flex to allow his hips to turn while keeping a centered tilt and axis on the backswing. Okay, we don't see him trying to turn into his right leg at all. And now as he starts making his downswing, this is something that's very good. You'll see that his arms begin to lower, and as he does that, he's keeping his left shoulder down, his right shoulder's high, as he's transferring his weight and getting back into his address tilt, which is right here. Okay. Now, here's something good that we can kind of see about this pattern. Okay, this is one of the patterns that you'll see. that's very common amongst the I guess you call it Morad group. The left arm's underneath his shoulders, right arm's in. He's gone back to his first tilt. Knees have regained their flex. Pretty much the same position as they were at address. Okay, now what this does is this develops a ballistic component to your golf swing. So he hasn't kind of jettisoned out of there. He hasn't early extended. He's gone right back into this release point. Okay, I'll just call it a release point for that matter, because the club is 90 degrees to the left arm. Okay, now as he goes into his impact position, you'll see with this pattern, I won't get into too much stuff, but you'll see that the hands are just a hair higher than they were at address. As he comes into it, he has his wrist angles maintained, and what he actually did to put the club down is his left wrist has palmar flexed a little bit to throw the club down. Okay, and this is one of the things with this pattern that is present. Okay, that's something that happens. You'll see that his feet are still on the ground, his hips have extended and rotated and gone slightly forward. That would be called your lower center of gravity, and you can see his right shoulder's lower than his left slightly. Okay, it's not a ton, but it's just enough. Now as he comes through, the hands are going back up and around the arc. Okay, so we'll see that. His right leg is starting to straighten out. And his inclination to the ground hasn't changed much the whole entire time. You'll see some guys, if I put a line right here, back actually away from that line, and the reason for that is because there's some disruption going on in the rate that their shoulders rotate. And in Robert's case and some other players' cases, you won't see a lot of that. A pretty famous player that was very good at that was Gary Player, to a point, because he actually walked through it. Okay, so that kind of left Gary, but anyway, won enough tournaments that he can do anything he wants. So as he's going back up and around the arc, you'll see the shaft is exiting a slightly bit higher than the elbow plane, and this is actually a good thing. And I think people kind of miss this point. Is I think there's, in my opinion, and I've talked to a lot of teachers about this, there's too many people trying to get this shaft to come right back out on the same line, and quite frankly, it doesn't matter. Okay, I think the more you try to do that, the more it hinders you, because especially if you're working with somebody who's like a 20 handicap, they just don't have the club head speed to do it. But a couple things that are interesting here is that his right leg is straightened out, and his knees haven't started rotating, so you don't see any light there. It means his pelvis is moving forward and up and extending, and he's maintained his inclination to the ground as it's gone into the top end of his backswing. Okay, and you'll see the nice soft finish. And one thing you'll notice, and I get this question a lot amongst players, they go, Dana, why do we see all your players look like they have the same looking finish? And the reason for that is, all of your speed is basically generated at the bottom of the arc, and as soon as you've hit the ball, all that's starting to disperse. And one of the things is with this golf swing and your pivot is that the generated speed that you've hit starts to disperse as you exit and finish the golf swing. So by the time your shaft reaches parallel to the ground on the other side of the arc, the club is starting to slow down the most. Okay, so by that time your wrists will rehinge and your arms will fold. Now, there's your answer. Okay, so there's no real reason to wrap this club around your neck, and because a bunch of other players do it, or you've seen other players do it. And in my opinion, I just don't teach that. If you do it, that's fantastic. It really doesn't matter. But if it ruins the structure of your golf swing, it might be something to look at. Okay, I actually try to get all my juniors to know this position at a pretty early stage, and I think in the long run it really helps them. Okay, in fact, it has nothing to do with speed. One of the longest hitters I have that's a junior has actually one of the shortest finishes. So he's just very ballistic at the bottom of his golf swing, and I think he swings at about 116. And he's actually, I think, well, now he's 17 years old, and he's able to hold that even with a driver. So anyway, that being said, that's kind of the overview of Robert's swing, and hopefully Robert puts a like to it. All right, you guys take